Hey everyone, welcome back. Today we are back here for another educational video. This time it is going to be on blood. So, what is blood? Well, you probably know it's the red stuff that goes through your arteries, veins, whatnot. Sometimes you will nick your finger, you see a little bit of blood. But blood is a body fluid in humans and other vertebrates that deliver necessary substances such as nutrients and oxygen to their cells. It also transports metabolic waste products away from those same cells. So blood is composed of blood cells suspended in blood plasma, and then the average adult has a blood volume of roughly 5 liters or 1.3 gallons. And blood accounts for 7% of the human body weight. So 7% of what makes you you is just blood. So then I have a picture here of kind of what it looks like here. So blood composition. So I said that it's like partially red blood cells, then partially plasma, then there's also partially white blood cells and platelets. So if you see here over to my side, you can see the one on the very far left is normal blood. And it has plasma at about 54.3%, red blood cells at about 45%, and then white blood cells and platelets at 0.7%. So if you look there, the yellow on the inside the test tube is the plasma. Then right between the yellow and the red, there is a thin line that is the white blood cells and platelets, and then the red, of course, is the red blood cells. Then also we have here for anemia and another type I don't know for sure of. But anyways, you can see in anemia there is much more plasma than there is red blood cells because they don't have as many red blood cells. Pretty easy. Okay, then we have some important functions of blood. So blood, of course, supplies oxygen to the tissues. Then the supply of nutrients such as glucose, amino acids, and fatty acids. Those are the nutrients that it likes to bring to the cells, along with oxygen. And then the removal of waste such as carbon dioxide after they use the oxygen, urea, and then lactic acid. Then there's immunological functions that include circulation of white blood cells and detection of foreign matter by antibodies. So these are the things you think of like white blood cells, like killing germs and whatnot. Then there's also coagulation, which is the response to a broken blood vessel. So when you get a cut or something like that, your blood is converted from a liquid to kind of a gel to stop the bleeding. That's where you get your little scabs and stuff like that. Because the blood and platelets and stuff like that will make a nice little kind of band-aid for it. And then you'll stop bleeding. Then the messenger functions, which includes the transport of hormones and the signaling of tissues. Then regulation of core body temperature, because we all know whenever it gets really cold, of course your fingers are the first to, like fingers and toes and stuff like that, are some of the first to get cold and stuff like that because they're farther away from your heart. It's harder for it to get blood to them fast enough. So, whenever your heart's pumping, it's sending hot blood to all of your corners of your body and regulating your body temp. So, the cells here. So, of course, right here, 1 microliter of blood contains 4.7 to 6.1 million male inside a male, and then 4.2 to 5.4 million in a female red blood cells. So if you're a normal guy, then you'll have between 4.7 to 6.1 million red blood cells. If you're a normal female, around 4.2 to 5.4 million. Then white blood cells. White blood cells are around 4,000 to 11,000. And then platelets, around 200,000 to 500,000. So you have much less white blood cells than you do platelets and red blood cells. And then if you look here behind me, we do have a picture of them. Of course, the red one is a red blood cell. The yellow is a platelet, and then the kind of bluish white one up there is a white blood cell. And platelets are much, much smaller than any red blood cell or white blood cell. So, let's go ahead and talk about our red blood cells a little bit more. So, red blood cells contain hemoglobin, which facilitates the oxygen transport right by reversibly binding to it and increasing its solubility. So, basically, hemoglobin just makes it so that your red blood cells can transport oxygen. They bind to the oxygen, and then they unbind when they need to get rid of it. Blood is bright red when its hemoglobin is oxygenated, and dark red when it is deoxygenated. We'll talk about the oxygenated and deoxygenated blood in a moment. But it is the iron in the hemoglobin that gives the blood its red color. So whenever you think of red blood cells, the red color is given to it by the iron that's in the hemoglobin. And then I do have a picture here from a microscope that shows some red blood cells. I mean, it's still amazing to be able to see red blood cells, but still not terribly great quality, I'll say. But still pretty cool. So, like I said, we're getting into oxygenation now. So, oxygenation of blood. So, blood is, of course, circulated around the body through blood vessels by pumping action of the heart. In animals with lungs, arterial blood from the arteries carries oxygen from the inhaled air to the tissues of the body. And then the venous blood, the veins, carries oxygen from the tissues to the lungs to be exhaled. So, and then I have a picture of the heart here, okay? So anything that is blue goes to the veins, okay? And that's the stuff that's pumping I guess they pump the blood, deoxygenated blood. Then the red goes to the arteries. The arteries are going to be transporting the oxygenated blood to the rest of your bodies. So when you think about this, just think of blue for veins, red for arteries, and think of veins being, I guess the blood being dark red because it does not have oxygen, whereas the red is like bright red because it has oxygen. So yeah, pretty cool. Oh, and I just want to mention here, since I said that, you know how people said that, like, whenever blood, like, I've heard this before, whenever blood does not have oxygen, it is blue. That is a lie. That is a lie that I had to figure out myself whenever I was looking up, not for this video, but I heard earlier on. Okay, so rate of flow. Blood does not flow exactly the same to all organs because some organs need more blood supply than others. So the rate of flow varies greatly between different organs. To be exact, the liver has the most abundant blood supply, which I was surprised it wasn't the brain that has the biggest supply. But anyways, the liver has the most abundant blood supply, and it flows at around 1350 milliliters per minute. So 1,350 milliliters per minute. Then the kidneys and brain are the second and third. So kidneys second, brain third of the most supplied organs with 1,100 milliliters per minute for the kidneys and then 700 milliliters per minute respectively for the brain. So whenever you think about how much blood your body is getting or something like that, just think about your liver, okay? Your liver is getting quite a bit. Like, it's almost getting twice the amount of blood that the brain is getting. And kidneys also get quite a bit. But their liver and kidneys are mostly for waste disposal, so I understand why they get quite a bit. I'm just surprised the brain didn't get that much. Ooh, then we have plasma, okay? Plasma is something I really, really, really want to talk about. So, originally, I was going to do this educational video this month about something different, but I went and gave blood, and of course, I gave Power Reds up for the Red Cross, and when you do Power Reds, your blood gets separated. So they separate the red blood cells from the plasma, and your plasma can be different colors, and that's what got me interested in learning about this. So let's go ahead and talk about the plasma. It is a fluid that is the blood's liquid medium. So most of your blood is actually plasma or blood plasma. It contains 92% water, 8% blood plasma proteins, and then trace amounts of other materials. Uh, Serum refers to plasma from which the clotting proteins have been removed. So if you have plasma and you take out the blood plasma proteins or the clotting proteins, it'll be serum instead. Uh, Plasma makes up about 55% of the body's total blood volume. So, like we said, I think it was like 54.5 when we talk about blood composition. It's about 55%. Then plasma is normally yellow. So if you look to my right here, I guess, yes, you'll see the yellow plasma that looks normal. Okay, that's normal plasma. Then you can see the 1, 2, 3, and 4 pictures, very far side. You can see that it gets to shades of orange, green, and brown. So these can be for many different reasons, kind of like medications and stuff like that. One thing I did learn whenever I was giving blood, I talked to I think they were technically considered phlebotomists since they mess with blood. But anyways, when they took my blood and they were separating it out in the machine, mine, of course, was a normal yellow. And she was like, oh, I wonder what type of blood, like what type of plasma you're going to have before it got separated. And I'm like, I didn't question her at first. But then after I got separated and I saw that mine was normal, I'm like, so what do you mean by different colors? And she was like, oh, sometimes when people come in here, they lie about taking medications, and sometimes their blood is different colors. And she said that I think Accutane or whatever, the acne medication or whatever, she said that there's been people that have came in there taking that, and their blood has came out to be a nice green color. And I'm like, that's actually pretty freaking cool. And yeah, so if you take certain medications and stuff like that, it can make your plasma turn to a different color when they separate it out. So that was like the main reason why I actually made this whole video, was just because of that. Oh, but hey, it was very cool. So let's move on. So the plasma proteins are albumins. They are the most common plasma protein, and they are responsible for maintaining the osmotic pressure of the blood. Without these, the consistency of blood would be closer to that of water. So they give it more of a thick, your plasma more of a thick texture, I guess, or viscosity. Then you have globulins. They come in different types because there's alpha 1 and alpha 2, and they are formed in the liver and play an important role in mineral transport and the inhibition of blood coagulation. There's also beta globulins. They are responsible for transporting fat to the cells for steroid and membrane synthesis. Then there are gamma globulins, or immunoglobulins. They can be used interchangeably. Are important for the immune system and transport hormones and other compounds around the body. Then it provides the human body with the defense against invading pathogens and other immune diseases. Then we have fibrinogen. I hope that's how it's pronounced. And these make up most of the remaining proteins in the blood and are responsible for clotting blood to help prevent blood loss. So, plasma actually does a lot. Like, it has a lot of stuff in it. When you think of like, oh, it's just plasma or whatever, it's mostly water. But it's water with all of these different proteins in it that, like, transport hormones around, transport minerals, change the consistency of blood, clotting and stuff like that. There's just a lot of stuff in plasma. Then, of course, we have white blood cells. White blood cells are also called immune cells or immunocytes. They are cells of the immune system that are involved in protecting the body against infectious diseases and foreign invaders. So these are like the warriors of your body. They go out there, they fight all the different diseases and stuff like that. They keep you safe. There are other cells that also keep you safe, but we're just talking about blood cells right now. They are generally larger than red blood cells, and the types of these white blood cells are as followed. And let me move myself right here so you can see the pictures of them as I'm talking. Uh, we have granulocytes, which are neutrophils, eosinophils, and basophils. And then you can see the pictures of them right there. And then we have granulocytes, which are monocytes. Then we have lymphocytes, which are T cells and B cells, which we're not going to go into exactly what those are, but these are the different white blood cells. And you can see how big they are, because monocytes are quite big. Eosinophils, basophils, and neutrophils, they are quite big. But then the lymphocytes are quite, well, not super small, but they're somewhat smaller, at least from this picture. Then we have really I think the last component, because we have red blood cells, plasma, and white blood cells. Now we have our platelets here. So platelets are also called thrombocytes or clot cells, and they are a blood component whose function, along with the coagulation factors, is to react to bleeding from a blood vessel injury by clumping. They are the first to initiate a blood clot, whereas also blood cells will also come in there. But platelets have no cell nucleus. They are instead fragments of cytoplasm derived from the megakaryocytes of the bone marrow or lungs. Megakaryocytes are a large bone marrow cell with lobated nucleus that produces blood platelets. So platelets aren't really like cells. They are pieces of cells. They're just fragments of cytoplasm. And platelets are found only in mammals, whereas in other vertebrates, like birds and amphibians, thrombocytes circulate as intact mononuclear cells. So, in birds and amphibians and stuff like that, sometimes, well, I guess just in them, their platelets are actual cells. They're full cells instead of just cytoplasm. I don't know exactly what other vertebrates have these full intact mononuclear thrombocytes, but birds and amphibians do, or some. Yeah. So, like I said there, platelets are kind of the first initial to start a blood clot, whereas blood cells come in too. And if you look in the picture above me there, you can see some platelets. And no, they're not the like white orbs there. They are the little purple ones. So all the little purple dots inside that picture up there are the platelets. So much, much smaller. So let's go ahead and talk about bone marrow. So the various cells of blood are made in the bone marrow in a process called hematopoiesis. Hematopoiesis is broke into two separate, I guess, processes. So the first is erythropoiesis, which is the production of red blood cells. And then we have myelopoiesis, which is the production of white blood cells and platelets. And during childhood, almost every human bone produces red blood cells. And as adults, red blood cell production is limited to the larger bones. These bones being the sternum, the rib cage, the pelvic bones, and the bones of the upper arms and legs. Then, if you look behind me here, I'll lower myself a little bit, or I guess above me now, we have a picture of bone marrow cells. So on the left, we have the bone there, where we have the compact bone, which is the hard bone that you think of whenever you look at a bone. And then inside, there is the spongy bone and the marrow. Then you can look there and you can see all of the different cells that are inside the bone marrow and stuff like that. We're not going to go over all of them. Just know that inside the bone marrow is where the production of red and white blood cells are made. And it's in two separate, I guess, types, like productions. So, then now we have how our blood is kind of categorized. So it's categorized by the ABO group system, and that is because of the different types of blood. So which blood group you belong to depends on the antigens and antibodies that are in your blood. So antigens are a combination of sugars and proteins that coat the surface of the red blood cells, and antibodies are in the plasma, which recognize any foreign antigens and tell your immune system to destroy them. So think of antigens as little marks on the outside of your red blood cell that kind of tell the body what they are. And antibodies are the little like police officers that check the proteins to make sure you're all good. So we have four groups. So first, there is type O, which if you have O blood, you have no antigens on like the outside of your blood cell. If you're type A, you have A antigens. If you're type B, you have B antigens. And if you have type AB, you have both A and B antigens. Then there is also a D antigen in the Rh system, which determines whether you have positive or negative blood. Because you can have A positive, B negative, A negative, B positive, whatnot. If you have the Rhd antigen, then your blood type is positive. And if you lack the Rhd antigen, then your blood type is negative. So here are all the different blood types you can have. So you can have O positive, which is about 35% of the population. It's the most common blood type. Then there's O negative, which is the universal donor. So everyone can take O negative because it has no antigens at all. Any body can use it. Then we have A positive, which is about 30% of the population. We have A negative, which is 8%. It is the universal platelet type. We have B positive, which is another 8%. B negative, which is 2%. AB positive, which is 2%, which is the universal receiver, meaning that if you have AB positive, you can take any blood type. You can take any type of blood. They can give you O positive, O negative, A positive, A negative, B positive, B negative, and you'll be completely fine. And then we have AB negative, which is 1% of the population. It is the rarest type of blood. Yeah. Okay, so now let's see how to tell your blood type. So we've talked about blood a little bit, so you should understand a little bit. But if you are in group A, you have A type blood. Then you will have A antigens on your blood cells, and then in your plasma, you'll have anti-B antibodies. Then if you have B type, you'll have B antigens, and you'll have anti-A antibodies in your plasma. Then if you're AB, you'll have no antibodies in your plasma, and you'll have AB antigens on your red blood cells. Then group O, you'll have no antigens on your red blood cell, and then you'll have antibodies for anti-A and anti-B inside your plasma. So basically, if you are one type, then you'll have an antibody for the opposite type. And if you are O, then you'll have antibodies for all types, and you'll have antigens for none. If you're AB, you'll have antibodies for none, and then you'll have antigens for all. And then if you have the Rhd antigen, your blood type is positive again, and if you lack it, you have blood type negative. So that was a little crazy there at the end, but I think by looking at this chart here, and then also like, I would recommend if you're going to get your like blood type checked, if you can't have it on, or you don't have it on your birth certificate, if you go give blood at the Red Cross, they'll give you a card that has your blood type on it, and then you can just understand. But this is a little bit more broken down how it's categorized. How cool it is. How cool is that? I was very interested whenever I initially gave blood my first time, and me myself, I have O positive blood, so that of course is the most common blood type, whatever. But even then, the Red Cross is still calling me all the time about wanting to give blood, and also doing, oh, do you want to do Power Reds? Well, I didn't explain, so let's go over. I don't have any slides for it, but I'll go over kind of how the blood donation process goes, just because we've got a little bit more time. We could talk about that. So, whenever you give normal blood, they'll take the blood and the plasma all together. Well, I guess the blood cells and the plasma together in just the composition of blood. And they'll take it in those little baggies. But if you do something like, if you do like platelet donation, then they have to separate out, or if you do power red or doubles, they like to call it, then the machine there will, like, first it'll pump in your blood into the machine, and then it will spin your blood, and that will separate out the red blood cells from the plasma, from the like other stuff that's in there, the white blood cells and whatnot. And then if you're doing power red or doubles, they will take the red blood cells from that, and then they'll pump back in the plasma and other stuff into your body with a saline mixture. And then if you're doing, I guess, a platelet donation, it would be the opposite. They would take the, not platelet, the plasma donation. They would take the plasma instead, and I'm sure they would pump back in your red blood cells with a saline mixture. Uh, but yeah, it's pretty cool actually. I like watching it because especially how I talked about the plasma, how the plasma can be different colors and stuff like that. I thought that was very interesting. Just to see how I guess medications affect your blood and whatnot. And I'm sure there's other ways that can like affect your blood, not just medication. I didn't look into those. I was mostly just looking at blood in general, and I just wanted to add that. But yeah. Anywho, I guess thank you guys for watching this time around. This was a little bit different than my usual ones because usually I'm doing it on a organism or something like that, or an ecosystem or something like that. This time I'm talking about just blood. Uh, but this is one that like I've been interested in blood for a little while now. I think the first time I looked at my birth certificate and I found out like I was O positive, I was like, what does O positive mean, kind of thing. And that's when I started looking into like all the different blood types and whatnot, and seeing that like O negative is the universal donor, and AB, I think it was negative is a universal receiver. Or no, it'd be OB, AB positive. AB positive would be, I think. I'm pretty sure. Yeah, AB positive is universal receiver. uh, but yeah, just very cool. I would highly recommend going to give blood because it is one of those things that like they can't really like make blood. So like they have to rely on donations to help people, especially in hospitals and stuff like that. People that need blood transfusions and stuff like that. Plus, they usually give out some sort of gift. Like sometimes they'll give out like hats, shirts. Sometimes they'll give out like little gift cards and stuff like that. Or plus you get free snacks. So kind of cool as long as you're not afraid of needles and whatnot. I would highly recommend to give blood. But anyways, that's all I have for today. Really glad you guys could stop by again for this educational video. Still, like always, don't know what I'm going to do next month. I'm going to have to decide on that. But I will see you again next month when we have our another educational video, our next educational video that we are going to have. So thank you very much for stopping by, and I will see you guys next time. So, bye-bye.